as we said goodbye, I stood near her and I literally felt her soul come from her heart chakra and just spiral out, just like in a big spiral. And I was like, whoa, like that's something new, completely different to me. But
Hi everybody. It's nice to be back. It's really exciting today. We have a new guest on. We have a beautiful lady, Becca. So
hello.
for those of you that hi people. For those of you that don't know us, that have just tuned into us and never met any of us before, my name's Anya from Spiritual Soul Centre, Beautiful Z. We do a weekly podcast on the power of energy. So if you do want to check that out, check the previous videos. But yeah, we dive into all things weird and wonderful in the spiritual, astral, connective ascension realms. And I went to a Mind Body Soul fair a couple of weeks ago. And it was a really lovely day filled with magical beings and all sorts of different energies. And as always, you're drawn places for certain reasons and certain things. And I learned a lot that day, but I ended up going into a talk that Becca was hosting. And it was just, I really enjoyed it. It was really insightful, really expansive. I met her and her energy, I was like, yeah, I really like this one. This energy is so true. So I invited her on the show. So yeah, I'll stop talking for a little bit and I'll let Becca introduce herself and tell us a little bit about who she is, what she does, and kind of her little intro into our little world.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, both of you. I've never done a podcast before. I've been contemplating doing it for a while, like for myself, but then it's just I'll let the universe bring it. But maybe this is why you've come across me, to like dip my toes. I don't know. So I am obviously my name's Becca. I've been doing death doula work for a little while. I don't really like to call it death doula. I just sort of like to call it more like working with the astral plane and the astral. Personally, it just sort of makes it a bit more broader for me. Whereas instead of calling it death doula, which makes it a bit more structured, but in a spiritual space, if that makes sense. I've been doing it a few years. I couldn't even tell you how long at this point. Definitely since 2023, when I started getting really hardcore into the astral work and stuff, and then opening up to other mediumshipy sort of stuff, advancing it, and just you know how it works, just a progressing yourself in any way, shape, or form, experimentation and things like that. Um, but yeah, I accidentally went to the astral a few times, and then I made a friend, and they were like, "Hey, you're going to the astral," and then that's where it started, really. And then later on, when I learned to do astral planning, I realized I could cross over souls and do things like that. And then after that, I came because I was working in a care home the whole time. I came to the realization that hold on a minute, I am actually being told by my spirit team that I can help people when they're suffering and coming to the end of their life and things, or about to cross over, or even sometimes when it's going to be a surprise, which is a bit morbid, but you know.
Yeah. No, and it's really important work that you're doing as well. And when I was listening to you talk, obviously it was a whole 45-minute talk on what you were doing, and I got to learn a lot about, the insides of the nature of your work, which was really beautiful. But also, in the same respect, when you was talking about your spirit team, your guides, clearing the soul, I was like, wow, this is so fascinating how much it overlaps into the work that we're doing. And I guess, like you say, because you came at it from a different angle, you started off, using the care homes, and then that kind of amplified and snowballed, as you said. And that's the thing with spirituality in the astral plane. Sometimes you can't predict where it's going to go and who you're going to end up and what you're going to end up doing. And I think what you just said there at the end about kind of being that bridge and helping souls cross over, it's a huge role, and it's so important to provide people with that support, because death in itself is something we just don't really talk about in the society, in the human race. It's a very kind of hush hush, oh, don't talk about it. Like you say, morbid. People think it's morbid, but in the same respect, it's the same part of life. It's just as much as life is living. It's part of the experience. And even myself, I've had fears and experiences of grief that have caused me to have my own relationship with death, even being a medium. But I really loved what you said about that being a bridge, and how that took you into the astral realm, and how that, you kind of didn't really choose it. It just took you there. And maybe if you feel comfortable sharing one of the first journeys that you went through, that kind of you realize, actually, no, I'm bridging more than just in the human realm here. This is more like I'm actually experiencing a sense of,
Yeah.
a bit more.
Yeah, so this is actually a really weird story. So when I was like opening up to all of my abilities and I didn't even know I was going to the astral. One day I was lying in bed and I was like looking at my ceiling and I was like, I can feel like there's a realm just there, like just in the corner of my room. I just feel like I could go there. And it was such a weird thing. It makes no sense when you think about it as a logical 3D human being. So me being a very curious soul anyway, I was just like, I'm going to try. So I just sort of went into like meditation and just went to this place that just looked like a tiny wood shed sort of thing. And I was like, okay, so I'm here now. What do I do? And then I was like, oh, there's a door. I'll open it. And I met this guy in the astral called John Dalford or Dalf. And he was like the weirdest guy. And obviously, over the astral, there's different rules. Like, it's not logical and it doesn't make as much sense and stuff. But we had like these, I kept going to like visitations to this place with him and got to know him over a while. And so he was a really interesting guy, but when I went there, I sort of just knew that we knew each other and we'd known each other for a long time. So obviously, like maybe like a spirit guide or someone from a past life or something like that. It was all like, because that's the beginning, I was still like, I don't know what questions to ask. So I got to know Dalf, and it's literally, if you looked at him, you'd be like, this is such like an imaginative thing. Is all this stuff real? So he was like a metal rocker pirate guy. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to just explore it and see what happens. Maybe I'm going into madness and maybe I'm not, but I'm here for it. But when I got to the astral space, I knew naturally that I could just change it. It's just malleable and I could like run around or like fly around or whatever. So every time I went there, I was like, hey, why haven't you changed this place? And he'd be like, I don't know, I'm just here waiting for my wife, because he was waiting for something every time I spoke to him. And so every time I'd visit him, like he's on his own, so I'd be like, oh, hi, how's it going? Just like you would pop into a friend's house. And then one day I was like, you keep not changing this, like this astral realm, like why not? And he was just like, oh, I don't know how. So that one day we just zoomed around and just like made loads of like tulips everywhere, just grow them around like this fence area that he had in his garden. And then after that, I was like, okay, right, that's just how you do it. You just imagine it and then it's intention and off you go. And then I came back out, and then the next time I went in, the whole place was completely different. And it was like, I was like, oh, you got it. Okay. So like had like modern stuff and like really old stuff. And it was just such a different place. So yeah, that was a really weird experience for the first astral sort of realm. But I had done it all by accident. So, but I didn't know until I spoke to a friend and they were doing similar things and they've been doing it for years, and then that's what made it make sense for me. And I was like, oh, okay, it's not meant to be logical, it's not meant to be like this real world sort of stuff. So yeah, a bit strange.
I wouldn't say, I mean, in this world with Anya and I, that is not strange. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
no, not now. But at the time I was like,
Totally get it.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. So, did you during that time period, did you have any other like perception that came up around death or the astral? Like what was your internal thinking around that?
so it wasn't teaching me about death at that point. My astral kept changing though. So there was like death of the astral space. So once I understood who this person was to me, like it was like a story, like slowly unraveling. Um, so it turns out like we'd known each other in a past life, and he'd come to get me to learn about the astral. But that was how, how spirit works. It's mysterious and how the spiritual world works. So yeah, he was there to teach me how to go to the astral, but at the time I didn't know. Um, and then I don't know what I was saying now. I'm sorry.
Oh no, don't worry, we do this all the time.
Blank.
Then you got the concept when you got into actually the death work and working into
Oh
that.
yeah, so that's what I was going to say. So, when his little job had finished, I wasn't allowed to go to the astral for a few days. I don't know if you've experienced this, but like
Yeah.
I call it like
Yep.
upgrading your astral.
Yeah.
And you can't go, and then you go there again. You're like, hold on a minute, this is all changed. So I can go there for like 3 days. I sent my friend there who I used to like understand this like new journey with. And he was like, "Oh, it's okay. It's just getting maintenance sort of thing. It's just being upgraded for this new part of the journey." And then obviously since then, I've had like multiple upgrades and I've changed it however you want, like because it's cool, isn't it? It's cool
I
like
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Like, let's remodel the astral plane. Like that's
Yeah. It's
no, I
fun.
actually really love that. That's awesome. And it
it's
is like you say, it's simply intention, and it is choosing what kind of frequency. And like you say, when people wonder, well, what does that mean when it's getting like remodeled on it's not a physical place? Well, it's more like a frequency attunement. It's like the
Yes.
energetic frequency needs to be reattuned to be able to hold certain frequencies, to be able to access and flow. It's like when you're writing code or something, the code needs to be written appropriately and properly to be able to hold the frequencies or whatever it is that's running off it, And so even though it's not a physical dimensional place in its sense, it still needs physical, tangible things like codes, frequencies, energy that create that space to be in alignment. So yeah, that totally makes sense. And I've been banished a few times for like a couple of weeks, and I've been like, why is it gone so quiet? What's going on? And a lot of the time, like you say, the attunement in me or around me has kind of been quiet. And we mentioned recently, me and Z, we both worked with Spirit for a long time, and there's kind of like a quiet period for a good few years where Spirit just went quiet. I used to work with them all the time, and I know they were still there because you could really access them if you really wanted to, but it felt like they were just kind of on the down low, and then all of a sudden this year they've come back really loud, and not in a bad way, just back with a vengeance. They're here to be heard, they're here to have their little voices heard, which is, it's nice. It's different, and it's such a strange concept. Like the angle in which I worked with death is not too dissimilar to kind of where it started off. I started off as a tarot card reader at 17. I was in uni doing a criminology degree. So I'd kind of studied a lot of serial killers, murderers, death, a lot of things like that. I was really interested in it. I was fascinated. I loved it. So I loved doing that degree. And yeah, then I became a tarot card reader and then a medium. So I went straight into the world of it. But in between while I was at uni, I was a home care nurse for 4 years. So I was working in home care and end of life care, and working with a lot of individuals at the end of their life. And I absolutely loved that job. It was one of my favorite jobs. I loved it. It was a beautiful chapter in my life. But I remember thinking, because I was only 17, 18, 19, I was very young. And I remember thinking like, this feels like I'm doing my job on earth, but I'm doing it too late. And I remember thinking that in my head. Yeah, I remember thinking like, I love doing this job and I love being with these people, but I felt like my role specifically on earth was with either younger people or a bit earlier on, to kind of change, to assist, bring in that higher self and to assist that embodiment of that while they're still living in the human journey. And I felt like I was only bringing that towards the end of that chapter of their life. However, I got to see how much that made a difference, just being there, and just like, the fear would come of what's going to happen afterwards. What's it going to be like? Who's going to be there? And obviously I did not know because I was still very early into my journey and I'd never experienced it before myself personally. So I didn't have the answers, but I just remember feeling this knowingness that it wasn't so much more than nothingness. And it was so much more than scripture, more than this good, bad place and this punishment and reward. And nothing's that black and white, even on the human realm. So why is it going to be that black and white in the spiritual realms? It just does not make sense. Everything has purpose, reasoning, pain behind it, behind actions and behaviors. And obviously there is things that are absolutely heinous, but I still believe that souls have a choice to heal and to kind of overview that it's not a punishment. It's to experience what you created in turning others, to then learn in your soul, not to kind of, you spoke a bit about that soul review period, which I found so interesting. Because all the information I've got, I've just got it from Spirit over the years that I've spoke to and beings. And so when someone else is stood up there saying these exact things that I've gone through on my journey in very, very similar ways. I was like, wow, this is very accurate to the ways in which my journey unfolded, and the terminology, like, you know, when I met my spirit team and when I was working in the astral with the souls in the in-between and kind of helping them transition. The ways you were talking about it was really kind of reminding that we are all learning in his own little way our piece of the puzzle. And as much as I felt like, you know, mine was meant to be earlier on and I did shift ending up to doing that, it still was relevant to my journey because it taught me so much. And it helped me even to be able to just resonate what you were talking about that the day when you was giving your talk, because I was like, actually so true. The importance of being there for people in that end of life stage, you know, and you don't need to be a certified death doula to have done that or to be doing that. You could have cared for someone, you could be family with people that you've looked after, your mum, dad, brother, siblings, anyone, anything that you have cared for in that transitional time, you know, you're doing that role. And yeah, maybe we should talk a little bit more about what that looks like in your guys' opinion.
If you like, yeah. What are you curious about, though?
I guess for others that are watching this, like, people might not know, you know, like I had a very natural pregnancy and birth, and I had a doula at my birth, and everyone was like, oh my God, what's that? And I was like, she's kind of like a natural midwife, you know, and it's like, she's a spiritual space to be able to allow me to make my own decision. And it's hard to explain that to people because it's not very normal in the mainstream world. And so I guess on the other end, it's the exact same thing. People are like, well, what is that? What does it mean? And even those that are maybe spiritually connected still might not be as familiar. I'm sure they can kind of guess, but, you know, we've kind of touched on the transition of souls, but maybe for those that are already doing this but don't know what it's called, maybe we should just kind of amplify a little bit of that, of like what it looks like to hold space for someone at that end of life kind of phase.
Okay, yeah. So
you got any vibes? Yeah, sorry, Becca.
Oh, sorry. So for me, obviously working in a care home, when you're working with people every day, you can see the natural decline, and you have all these people, like professionals, saying, hey, this person's not doing so good. This person might be coming to the end of their life. They might actually be poorly right now. This might be a condition that moves forward, etc. So as soon as I hear anything like that personally, I go into the spiritual plane. So for those who don't know what that means, I go in, like, well, in my translation, I go to this realm, but as the spirit realm of this realm. So earth realm as spirits. We're talking as soul to soul as human beings. So for people that are non-verbal, that can give them a way of communicating, because your soul can always communicate no matter what. It's a vibe, it's an energy, it's a frequency, yeah? So say someone's had like a heart attack or something, or a fall or anything, maybe you don't know why they've fallen or something, you can go into that spiritual space and find out what's going on, find out if they need some more assistance, find out if it's their time yet or not, or if their spirit guides, their loved ones, or my spirit guides, their loved ones are coming, bringing us together for a reason, to either give us a lesson like us little mediums do, or to help someone and make sure that they're okay and they're getting the care that they need, because there is nothing written in books and texts and stuff from people like us.
Yeah.
There's nothing as like a carer or a support worker saying, hey, when this happens, do this. But wouldn't you want that for yourself? So this is why this is important, you know?
100%. And I loved how you talk about that, because we use it in the practical sense, like in the human sense of, if you're struggling to communicate with someone, then just write a letter to the higher self or go speak with them in astral. But when you actually think about it, of course you can do that when someone's not able to speak, when someone's, you know, in medical induced comas, things like that. Like, of course you can, you know, if you can communicate with spirits, if you can communicate with babies in utero, if you can communicate with animals in spirits, of course you can communicate with someone's soul that's potentially unable to communicate in its physical body. So yeah, it's a really beautiful way of just, I wanted you to share your perspective on that, because the way you word it, I think, just gives insight into there is a lot of people that are caring for individuals at the moment, and there is a lot of people that are supporting and, you know, stepping up to be that role for people. And it is a really beautiful role, but it does come with sometimes an emotional kind of heaviness of, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right things? And if you are unsure on that, what Becca was just talking about is you don't need to be a trained, skilled astral traveler to do this. You can simply just have the intention to connect with that person in astral by closing your eyes and picturing them and just kind of asking them some questions. And you really will get some sort of feeling, energy, some image, you know, words, something that gives you insight into kind of what you're experiencing there. So I am really glad you shared that, because it is a completely different way to approaching death than we have done in the past few years. Z, did you want to add?
No, I was just say, like, my process has been really similar. Death has been such a huge portion of my existence. I've had so many near-death experiences where it was just a normal facet of me growing up and realizing that I was traversing that a lot. And then I did a career in end of life processes too, where it was just very similar. I um, moved into the astral space or the soul space, energetic space, and asked them exactly what's going on, what they would need in the space if they wanted to actually transition, what was happening inside their body, if they're ready to have their end of life review, all of those things that were ready to be in process. And I think it's one of the most beautiful processes that we have down here. And from my perspective, so much easier. Like for me, I'm like, death is going to be great. I always say that to myself, like, that's easy. Some of the life processes that we're experiencing aren't quite as easy from my perspective, but thank you so much for your perspective.
You're welcome.
No, I do hear that, and it is true. It is a strange one. I've danced with death in weird ways because I have that perspective that on a spiritual level, it is beautiful. It's like, you know, there's a reason why your body releases DMT when you die. It's obviously,
Yeah.
you know, the next level trip, it's the next level journey, it's the expansion. And I'm, you know, like you say, a part of me is excited for that next chapter and journey. I guess for me, there's this, I don't know if it's because I've lived so many lives and I might enjoy being human. I don't know what it is. But there's a part of me that feels like there's a real sacredness. I've said it before a few times, but in being in this human at this time on earth, in this body, and, you know, I know when you don't just die, I know it continues on, of course, but I guess in the same sense, I have this real like appreciation for the finiteness of this experience in this timeline with these people in this energy, you know, like I know we get to come back and do it in many different ways, but I like this current moment and frequency, and I think it's a strange thing to. I'm not scared of death in its sense of what it is, but I would not, you know, want my chapter on this earth plane at this time, at this current moment. Like I feel like there's so much more living, and so I guess there is a part of me, like there's a lot of mediums and spiritualists that are like, I'd die tomorrow, I wouldn't be afraid, but I will not own that. I do not feel like that. I feel like I have so much more life to live. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm happy right now in my human body, and I'm not wishing that next chapter to come anytime soon. You know, I find the human life difficult sometimes, and I find it challenging and misunderstood and lonely. But in the overall, man, I fucking love being here. And I really love this experience and this time and this journey. And yeah, I guess, I do understand the grief. I understand people's grief maybe a lot more than I think some people that get so deep into the spiritual world that we have all got and do, because I see both perspectives. I see it and I understand that it's not the end. So why would you have so much sadness and, you know, like stuck in the loop? And I see that, of course, like you can talk with them, connect with them right there. I get that. But on the same sense, I also do see the pain which is created when someone is taken by shock or too soon, or, you know, when they didn't really want to go, or they had more life to live, or there were things left unsaid. I do understand why people experience that pain and that grief. And I know some of it's programming and some of it was taught, like, you know, you have to fear this thing because it's the worst thing ever. And I don't believe that. But I do understand why there is the deep sadness there sometimes, especially, you know, as a human, as a mother. You know, as people that has lost people. My granddad died when I was 4, and he was only 56, and my whole family like collapsed because of it. Everything changed, and I know it was for purpose. There was divine plan and purpose always, but it doesn't mean that the after effects in the human are not really not good, you know? And so I guess I think that comes from being the lack of preparation, the lack of communication about death, the lack of knowing what comes after, the lack of support and knowing what to do around them times. People usually back off. And it's the worst time you could back off. You know, it's where you should be coming together and supporting each other and holding space. But I think it comes from having these difficult conversations and not being afraid to talk about things and question things. And, you know, I have a family member that's going through dementia, an early onset diagnosis, and everyone's terrified. And don't get me wrong, I'm a little bit, you know, not happy about it. But the only person she come and spoke to about death, obviously it had to be me. And I'm sat, kind of part of my human is feeling like, I don't know, like I was definitely comfortable, but I was a little bit like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing. But then a part of my spirit knew, like, of course this conversation had to happen because I'm the only one that had actually sit there and talk to her about it because she's terrified, you know? And I guess it's so sad that we don't feel like we can talk to as close as people if we are faced with that dilemma or faced with the thought or someone around us. You know, it's a really strange concept that we know it's going to happen, but no one talks about it.
It's just avoided like the plague, literally.
Literally. It's very strange. So what do you think we can do? Because we work in and out of the realms. We're an in-between realms kind of gals. How can we, you know, bridge that a little bit more, I guess? Is it just by doing what we're doing and being more vocal about it and not having the fear?
I personally think, like, so I obviously have my own spiritual center, and whenever people come in and go, oh, you're a medium, normally that's like the key to opening up a really cool, juicy conversation, and I'm here for it, as you well know. But a lot of the time, I do get like a lot of questions about what happens next and what should I expect and things like that. And normally it's from someone that's already going through grief of sorts, whether it's like straight away they've just lost someone or like it's years down the line. There's still all these questions, and I do think we need to try and normalize asking these questions, and like wanting to know the answers to these questions, because there's so much comfort in talking to a medium and finding out what's next. I know through my personal journey, like I was brought up Jehovah's Witness, and all of this stuff was evil and bad, and that's how I was brought up. Maybe not for everyone, but for my experience, it was. You couldn't talk to spirits, you couldn't see them, you had to get rid of them straight away. So coming from that headspace and then having these spiritual experiences, which really started from when my mum passed away. So my mum passed away very suddenly. She had it was very sudden. So I took her to hospital, convinced my brother to take her to hospital that day. And she'd had a scan. I think she'd had a CT scan in the morning, about 9 o'clock in the morning, got herself home. And then I phoned her after a job interview and I said, Mum, I'm on my way. And she was like, oh, I don't think you should come. And I was like, that's a really weird thing for you to say because we've had this planned for ages. And she was like, I collapsed in the bath. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So later on, I convinced my brother to take her to the hospital. And then she had found, like, because of the CT scan had luckily been done that day, they'd found like a brain tumor right at the back of where your brainstem connects to your brain. And that night she'd had a seizure and it disconnected her brain from her brainstem. So that was very sudden and very traumatic. And that's it. Like, suddenly I'm jumped into this what's going on space, this sort of nothing's real or everything's numb around me kind of space. Now I understand that as that's a spiritual space. That's where now we pull ourselves back. My soul is moving somewhere else so that I can understand the bigger picture here. But right then and there, that was like panic mode. I don't know what's happening. Why is this all real all of a sudden? That kind of thing. And I think it comes from that super raw seed of like, this is happening right now, which is where it needs to start. People comforting, people understanding, people pulling in their past experiences, like whatever it is, and at one point in time that we need to sort of give comfort and educate from. Even the preparing, if you've got the chance to prepare before death, obviously that's good. We do that part as a society, but that actual real rawness of right now, that's a spiritual space that we don't really visit, and we don't really understand. So I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened from that space as well. So obviously that happened to my mum. She had a seizure and she was put in intensive care and kept on life support just to keep her body alive, essentially, so that we could say goodbye. In the morning, I came to say goodbye because I'd stupidly, we all have these regrets because that's part of the process as well. I'd taken sleeping tablets because I knew that I wouldn't sleep that night. And then I woke up to like 43 missed calls and I was like, I messed up. So that's instant regret, like guilt, Anyway, so when I went to say goodbye to my mum, I now energetically at that time I was learning something interesting. And I didn't know what all of this stuff meant. I've always been very clairsentient, like completely and utterly I could tell you what it was and what was going on, etc. But in the moment of seeing my mum there and having like this weird closed off energy that's like sort of like a protective bubble around all of my family there, it's like a sacred space that we sit in and we're together. I don't think we talk about that energy very much, and how we're all feeling the same, and it's creating this vibration of what's next, which is a really interesting energy to be in. Now I'm thinking back at it. And then the interesting thing about this lesson, so after a while, obviously the nurse comes in and we've said our goodbyes and we've spent time with mum. And she says, like, let me know when you're ready to turn the machine off, because that was the only option at that point. That was done, unfortunately for bless her. So we was like, okay, we'll do it in 20 minutes at this point. So those 20 minutes came, like time changes in that time as well. It's like such a weird concept, but then that's the 4D, that's the concept of time. It's different and it can change when you want it to, which is really interesting. And then coming from that space and then having this 20 minutes that feels so short on every other day, but then there it felt like hours and it felt special and sacred, and like you become so observant to those around you, and it's a strange thing. And like you notice the tiny details on like someone's hand or on their face that you've never paid attention to before. It's such a surreal moment. But then when we did turn this machine off, it was like my mum's soul knew exactly what, I'm done now. I've said goodbye. Because being clairsentient, I feel energy really easily. And she was just lying there, like how you can imagine, like flat in the bed sort of thing, arms down her sides. But as we said goodbye, I stood near her and I literally felt her soul come from her heart chakra and just spiral out, just like in a big spiral. And I was like, whoa, like that's something new, completely different to me. But I was like, but I'm here for it because I'm in this receptive space of I don't know what's going on. I need answers. I'm having like all sensory, whatever way they're coming, I want answers sort of thing. Which is a really interesting feeling at the time, because you're like, what's this mean? Like I'm getting some sort of input, but I don't know what it means. And then this energy moved and it went right behind my shoulder, and I could feel, how like they say at NDE you can see and look at your own body. She was there. Like there's no doubt about that in like what I know now and what I felt at the time. I just knew, and I could see her, like feel her there. And like the energy over her body had changed, and I was like, she's there. So I made sure that I looked over my shoulder, my right shoulder, and I said, like, see you later, mum. Right. And that's just a special moment, but in such a strange and surreal way. But now looking back at it and how valuable and interesting and like to understand what it meant now and at the time is two different things. So at the time I was like, whoa, this is all just weird and sensory and strange and spiritual. I didn't even really know what spiritual was at that point. But now I'm like, that was fucking magical.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Wow, and thank you for sharing that with us. That was magical. Did you have any reflections then?
No, honestly, I'm just in gratitude for the experience that you
Right.
word.
Yeah.
I've had a few that have been somewhat like that, but it's not really a worded space that like I can actually put a lot of physical words to it because it's such
Yeah.
a it's no time zone, completely spiritual, but also that doesn't even cut the word for what that is, you know?
No,
Exactly.
no, it doesn't. And I love the way when Becca were explaining it, it just felt so like you say, you kind of included us in that experience with you, and I was really grateful for that. Thank you, because it really felt like we were immersed in that chapter and journey, and what a profound experience to have to go through walking that with your mum as well. Like, I bet that was a really beautifully heartbreaking, expansive journey to go through that in that way. And again, just really grateful and honoured that you shared that with us, because that seemed like a really sacred experience and chapter that kind of sparked another initiation in your journey. And that's kind of something that does tie in with how we interpret this whole journey, because when we go through such things like that, there is choices. You know, we can go, oh well, it was just that time. Like you said, people come out of that bubble, that sacred energy, and they go back to the normal, and they forget that bond, that frequency, that connection, that commitment that they all kind of made to each other, and it shifts away back into the 3D. And then there's some people like yourself that don't, and they use them experiences as a catalyst for expansion and a catalyst for growth and truth and, you know, deeper connections to why we are here and what does happen. And, you know, even though we are mediums and channelers and healers and all the rest in between, we don't specifically necessarily know the answer to where you're going to go in your next, you know, who's going to come for you and what team you're going to have and what that's going to look like in your realm. But all we know for sure is there's more, far more than we've been led to believe, and far more even than the scriptures of, like I said, good, bad, heaven and hell. I don't personally believe that some might perceive that way if that's how they choose to perceive it. I don't know. But I just really don't feel like that's how the realms work. It's not on that same human emotion of good and bad, you know, right and wrong, evil and good. It's, as you know, when you go into the realms, it's frequency and energy, you know. So yeah, again, what a beautiful experience there, and magical. Like you said, that kind of sums that journey that you had there. It was very, very magical. And I think I would love to ask you guys what you think, because there's such a mixed opinion on the ascension. Now, you've mentioned a few words, Becca, like the 3D, the 4D, the 5D. We talk a lot in them terminologies too. And it's like, in my opinion, I remember first seeing anything about this. I heard a bit of Dolores Cannon, didn't really understand it, but heard it when I was younger, like 16, 17. And then I remember seeing, because I paint, for those that don't know, I do paintings and drawings, and I painted two earths. And I remember seeing it, and it was like one was pulling away from the other, and the other one was bigger. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know what this means, but anyway. And then a few years after that, I'd gone deeper into the realms, and I was going to Morocco, just before I was going to Morocco, actually, on the retreat. And I was channeling in about the ascension, the new earth, the shift. I remember everyone was talking about the shift in 2021 on the 21st of December, 2021. There was the shift, and then there was the 2012 one when the world was going to end. But I did not understand it really until I got to a certain place of understanding it. Like we were saying, it's a frequency thing. We've never gone through an ascension in the human body before. So usually you ascend when you die. So you die, you go to your higher ascension being. That's how it usually works. So we've never, in my opinion, as a human race, gone through a collective ascension in the human body, where your souls and your body are both upgrading and ascending in frequencies whilst concurrently living in that human body. And I think the ways that this has kind of panned out in both the human and spiritual realms have been shifting and shifting and shifting the timelines compared to what we thought were going to happen in 2020, then 22, that, you know, it's kept. And I remember a lot of people channeling in that there was going to be mass death because, you know, we can't have all the people that are not ascending. There's the people that want ascending, we're going to all die at this very similar or same time and not make it to the 5D earth. But in my brain, I just didn't understand how. We're not in a 5D realm yet. Like, we're not all there. We might be tapping into that on a very regular basis, but we don't all live there 24/7 in our current reality. In my opinion, it's not there fully yet. It specifically was not then either. So if we was at a frequency of of still transitioning and building this new earth and planting all them seeds of growth and love and bridges and being that bridge in between realms. It didn't make sense to me how we could start that on mass death. And I think kind of the ETs and the other peeps that were involved kind of knew that too, because it didn't end up going down that way, you know? And a lot of people that were channeling that in got that message, that it just didn't seem aligned in the higher realms, in the highest good for humanity, for that to happen. But these people were still not ascending if they chose not to ascend, not for any hierarchy reason, simply because they chose not to ascend in this lifetime, either physically could not or whatever reason. So they are still going to pass away, and they have been passing away. We have seen an increase in people passing away in different reasons and unexpected reasons and things like that. So I'm going to get to the question. The point of the actual question was, how do you see that looking, and what do you kind of see people like us that do work with death stepping into them roles as it moves into more of a collective thing rather than an individual thing? What do you guys both feel or think about that?
So I've actually had a really good think about this, and the concept of 4D really helped me. And the multiverse. So when you have the multiverse, think of the multiverse layering over. So we have like this version of reality, and then we have this version of reality. At some point, they go into like crossover, or just maybe they sit over each other at the same time. Much like the astral you can go all over the place. So why wouldn't the 3D technically be the same?
Yeah.
It's spiritual part of it. So how I see it is, maybe we're in this version of reality, like us three, we're in the same reality right now, but are we actually in the same reality right now? Because we're all having a different experience right now. Yeah. So if you have this version of reality that we're in, and then this version over here overlapping, maybe they just sort of intermingle and then separate. So instead of death, maybe it's just transition and moving forward into a different reality. So this is how I conceptualize it.
I hear that because I used to say the exact, I do still, and did say for years when everyone would say to me, oh, they're going to die, I'd be like, oh no, I don't see it as that. What if we just live in different timelines, and then you coexist in the same reality when you co-create together, and then you go back to your coexistent individual timeline realities? But something shifted recently, and I think me and Z, we were talking about it, and it feels like the Earth herself, she's ascending, she's raising her frequency and timeline, and it felt like she could not hold both frequencies at the same time for, say, the next 20 years. So I'm not saying right now, I still believe right now that there is, I see it like a cake, just like you said, multiverse. So it's like a cake. We're all in the same cake, but we might be in the icing bit that's further up on the cake because we have more of a, I hate the ego and hierarchy of it. I'm not trying to do that, just to try to explain it. You know, you have more conscious awareness, you have more ability to reflect, zoom out, whatever, all that shebang. And then you have those that are kind of in the ego, in the pain, living in that cycle, in them loops on the lower timelines, or whatever you want to call it, down at the bottom of the cake. But right now, it's still the same cake. And that's why we still feel everything from down here and are affected by the collective energy that is not necessarily always positive and, you know, in that higher timeline, shifting through things. So at some point, I feel like I've been given the message in the past kind of few months that Earth cannot hold it all in one cake anymore. There will have to be either a separation. And at one point, I seen like a duplicate Earth. I'm not going to lie. I seen like a mini Earth that was like a holographic Earth. Like we had real Earth that was holding the real souls, the ones that were ascending. I hate the terminology because they're not exactly how I want them to be, but you got to roll with me because I'm trying my best. So you have like the real Earth that's ascending into her 5D frequency that's holding 5D souls. And then you had a holographic Earth that was playing out, allowing the 3D souls that were still in their trauma and karma loops to play out that until they reached a level of ascensional frequency. But I don't know if I see that still being in human form, but I don't know if they will know they're not in human form anymore. So then it goes even deeper to the point of, you know, when do we know and if we know, if it's even separated. What do you think, Dee? Because this is going into your field of life. I feel
Yeah,
like
this
I
is
did not
getting
work
all
that
deep,
right.
ladies. I want to say from my perspective, the way that I see the multiverse is, of course, it's very infinite. So there's many versions of ourselves and the earth interplaying at the same time, and they're waving with each other. And as we're upgrading our frequency and aligning to the right one, because I've experienced this many times where I have died, and I'm like, oop, shifted my timeline right there. And that version has shifted, it's transformed into something else. And that's the way that I see it. We're just as souls choosing, which version of our line that we want to be on.
Mm.
And our upgrade is working that way. And then these merging lines are coming in together to fuse with that, but also it's not, I don't want to say necessarily separate because there's such an infinite amount of lines that we're just choosing the line that we're looking at that we want to be in right now. And that version of self fits into something else, or it comes back into the soul for usable energy.
Interesting. And that's what I mean. I feel like there's so many potential answers and gateways to this, and we literally could go. But if you like, yeah, so if we look at like this specific human ascension in this human body, I loved what you said about your conceptual belief that actually in this human body you have technically died and then come back many times, but chose to join back in this timeline, in this human incarnation, in this body, which is a very interesting perspective. And I feel like we're still at that precipice point where souls do have the last calling for the ascension shift. And I feel like, again, if I don't know what it looks like if they don't ascend, I'm not saying like everyone's definitely going to die. I don't necessarily see that. But I just feel like I don't know if the dimensional frequencies can all coexist in the same timeline dimensional space like they have been doing for a long time. I feel like this is a transitional place that we're in as we're shifting, as we're collectively ascending. And I don't feel like this transitional place of holding both frequencies in the same dimensional space can coexist for like a long time. What do you think about that?
I think that's going to depend on soul and perspective and how we're working with the multiverse itself, because I've seen, at least for myself, in different experiences with souls, that they can keep a whole lot of those aspects around depending on what they're, of course, experiencing. And once they hit a moment of their truth, some of those dimensionary spaces go away because they're now in a different ball game, right?
Yeah.
Different
And that's
game.
like, yeah, exactly. And that's like the holographic one that I think I was seeing. It was like you can go to like the test run over there while you figure out your shit. And then when you figure out your shit, you can come back. Do you know? It was like you just
like I'm gonna play a
not
different
quite
game.
there yet. Yeah, but you can. And
But I
again,
feel
I
like
don't go on, sorry.
no, I was gonna say I just feel like it's us remembering that we have the ability to traverse that. And once
Mm-hmm.
we have the ability to understand all of those spaces, then it's easier to maneuver and learn, and then we're gonna grow into spaces or playgrounds that are something that we haven't experienced before.
Right, right. Great. That was so good. I love it when we go into the random depths of the universe and back. Because really, truly, who actually knows the answer? You know, there is actually no specific right or wrong answer. That's the thing. We know what feels right to us and what resonates, but that's the beauty of this. You know, we don't claim to be quantum science physicists as much as I'd love to claim that I was. I'm not. I actually nearly failed science, ironically. I wasn't very good at science, but turns out I do understand quantum physics later on down the line.
Hey.
But, you know, the whole
Yeah.
point of it is just translating it in your own interpretation and terminology. And I guess going back to a concept is the death thing, the dying. I guess the question is, if it does happen in that way, I'm not saying it'll happen all overnight, but if we do end up having, so some people have the perspective that there's going to be, I think it was like 25, I can't remember, 25% of souls, they're actually activated as like 5D souls and the rest are like NPCs. And so say if like let's put theory out there, like say a hypothesis that all of them 75% of non-player characters went away and there was the 25% left, I guess what would that look like? What would that feel like? I guess, would it shift how we work with death? I don't really know what the question is there. I think I'm just running through the concept of, you know, the difference, and it's the mass shift, I think, that's coming up in my consciousness, the mass shift in is there anything that us light workers that we do and the way we work with death, and anyone watching this, that we could maybe give advice on in a ways that we can hold space if we are experiencing passing, or multiple people passing, or the people around us are experiencing that? Is there any advice we can give people on how to hold space at this time? You know?
I think you need to like give advice depending on the pockets of people who are asking.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at like the average lay person that's maybe only just waking up to this, that's going to be a completely different answer to someone like us three. So for the like obviously having my own spiritual center, I just go and get a lot of like newbies come to me, like new spiritually awakening people. I like to joke that I am an activator soul, and that people just come to me and I'm like, because it comes up in my readings all the time, like, heads up, you're gonna have spontaneous past life regression or something like that. So I think going from that route, that's, I think we've all got like our own roles to play. So like you guys, you're going bigger on like podcasts, you're going to be like giving people information like this, whereas I'm like every day a few trickling through the center, a few tips and techniques to learn there. There's like everyone's got a different role to play, and I think we all have to play the same role, but in different aspects, like a big jigsaw piece sort of thing.
No, I totally see that. I totally agree. And I love that, because it is the different pieces of the puzzle. We all have a different piece to play. I guess it's kind of questioning, how do we collectively, or how can we hold space, us individually and us as a collective, for that collective grief and for that uncertainty in this shifting era of change, because everything feels so uncertain and so ungrounded. And I guess you were so right in saying, like, if you're going to give advice to someone, well, that's completely dependent on what they're going through, how they're going through it, where they're at in the journey, where you're at in your journey. 100%. Yeah. So if we can maybe zoom it out a bit more to the collective in this era of change, when we're experiencing grief and endings, you know, yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like it's holding that space right now.
I think with me, I know my personal journey and what I have to do now, and people like me, we're to keep our vibration as high as possible and to keep progressing for the goal. I feel like because we have that wide, vast vision, if you like, within us, we have to move it forward and higher. As a collective, no matter what, whether that looks like avoiding the news, like, because that definitely looks like that to me, like avoiding conspiracy, whatever it is, which I've done since 2020, because obviously working in care, it was like drumming it into me, like left, right, and center, it's battering me, and my mental health my frequency went down. But since then, I've always pulled myself back up, and I stay that way. I keep going. Yes, I dip. I'm a human at the same time. But I feel like if we can carry on bringing up that vibration, then that's where we're going to win. That's where we're going to transition better into a new version of New Earth, if you like.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I love the way she read it. That was awesome, wasn't it? It was really cool. Yeah, awesome. Dee, how do you think we can anchor ourselves right now when these quantum shifts feel a bit overwhelming?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, really good question. I was gonna say with the earlier one.
Oh, sorry.
Just kind of going into like what helps me in my current space too, and the people that I work with, is that, I bring it down to the fact that we are human. We are all doing this together. Like no one's alone in it. That generally helps. And being as present as possible in the space, whether that's going through grief or loss of somebody or any of the other transitional energies working their way through, to be very present and say, hey, like, I can take a step here, also knowing that I'm not doing this by myself. I can always ask for support. There's always things that I can do to keep elevating my resonance, whether that is standing in my full authenticity or, interplaying with creativity, whatever it is to help myself keep moving myself forward. I'm also moving the waves forward for everybody else.
100%. Oh, beautiful. You guys, your worded things very eloquently beautiful. Yeah, so I think maybe we should just leave on a takeaway that we'd offer you know, how we can harness our own power. Like Becca was saying, you know, we all have an individual piece of the puzzle, as we mentioned many times. We don't want you all to be like doing the same thing. We're all not meant to be doing the same thing. That's not what we're here to do. Like me and Z say often, we do very similar things in different ways. And it's like we have our own magical bit and way to sprinkle in our magic. And that's going to resonate with some people and it's not with others, and vice versa. That's the whole point. So yeah, I think my opinion on just adding to these guys, how you can be like anchoring and harnessing your power, is not being afraid of judgment, of what other people are going to say, of, oh, they're going to think you're a bit mad. You know, we've all had that. We've all had that.
Yeah.
And I think it's that bravery. I was thinking back to 2020 when I mentioned it the other day, when it was a choice. I was running a very successful local spiritual business, and I made a choice. Like, I'm not going to conform to these things. I'm not going to post on this, you know, I won't say the words because you know what it's like. But I'll stand in my truth, and I'll see who resonates with that. And I did lose quite a few people and followings, but in the same respect, now I look back and I think 2020 was a year of clarity and who was going to stand in the truth. And I have zero regrets from doing that. Absolutely not. And so I think that's the point. It's that standing in your truth, even when your voice shaking, even when you don't feel strong and powerful, your power will come to you because you are choosing to step into it. So be brave would be my little take home message. Be brave, listen to your body, listen to yourself, and know that your power is there. You're just on your journey back to self.
I appreciate that. So it's a synchronicity that you say that to me, right? So recently I have noticed, well, this whole year, if you like, I have noticed that there is a theme of chasing fear and like going at it like it's not really scary and it's not really, well, it isn't. When you do it and you get up and do it and you're like, oh, actually, I'm alive still.
Yep.
You know, that's the thing. So like when we met through my Deaf Doula talk, I was chasing the fear. I hadn't done that in a different place yet. And even though I knew all my stuff, like I had nothing really to worry about. I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to chase that fear and just do it anyway. So I did. And you probably could tell that I was nervous at first. But after a while, I broke in and I was like, actually, I'm all right. But I think like when we can sort of come to that reality in ourselves where really fear doesn't pay much attention to us, like in the sense that if we can just go, oh, it's just another feeling, or make it like flat and boring sort of thing, instead of making it this dramatic thing, because that's when our resonance, our frequencies going up and down, when we're seeing fear as a bad thing and it's shaking us up, or even other negative emotions, that shakes us up and changes our frequency, so it's all over the place and it's dispersed and chaotic, right? But if you can ground yourself into a place of seeing each of these emotions, these different feelings, whether it's like depression, stress, anxiety, whatever it is for you, and just sort of numbing them down, not in an unhealthy way, obviously, but in a way that makes it so, oh, that's just an emotion, like, or maybe like, you know how people name an emotion, or like
name their brain. Yeah,
that kind of thing, and just sort of going, what happens really if I tackle that stress or tackle that fear or whatever. That's definitely working for me, because I am a typical Virgo. I will stress about everything, I will think about it, overthink about it, and
I feel that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, shout out to the Virgos. It's stressful and it's hard. But when we are in that, like, it's basically fight or flight, isn't it? So
100%, 100%.
when we're doing all of this overthinking and staying in this chaotic but somehow controlled energy, that's not doing us any favors. But when we can make it make sense on a higher, like, mind level, we're going to move forward with grace and gratitude and like relaxation, and actually it's okay, actually this is part of the human experience. And then I think as well, if you can bring people along with you and just be like, hey, I'm experiencing this, and then they can normalize it and chill it out for you, that always helps to ground us, because you know what we're like, we're in the very high chakras a lot of the time.
Yes,
Being embodied. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. I think it was important to hear them reflections.
Mm.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I always take it back to something similar into like we don't have to make meaning of what's coming up in our systems, that could be a very neutral
Yeah,
space. And we get to choose what it means. Like usually for me, humor is one of the biggest ones because I think human emotions are hilarious when you get down to it. Like, oh my
You make
gosh,
me
look
laugh
at my
when you
drama queen right now.
yeah.
And the fact that I have a choice of whether I want to lean into that or not, or it's just neutral. And where's my power in that? How much power am I going to give away to my fear that's popping up with this? Or, I could turn it around into a cute little cartoon character that's got like a little Smurf, and I'm like, cute, come sit on my shoulder. And also, I'm going to continue to do this and gain my power back and take a step. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's really important, like choosing your way of breaking it down, because we need to sit with it. I'm a bit mean, not really that mean, but I'm kind of like, listen, stop, carry on. And I just tell myself, I'm like, we're not going there, carry on. And it usually comes up when I'm like going wild swimming or something, when it's freezing and I'm like, are you even doing this? It's not going to, and it comes up and I hear it. And just have not been as often since having kids. Well, like not at all, except for like 3 times recently. I've not been since really having the baby. So I've been pushing myself to go lately. And I drove home from dropping the kids at my mum's the other day and I seen this little reservoir and I drove past it a few times. It's been calling me and it's so cold. And there's a video of I'm half fighting myself. I'm trying to and I'm fighting myself to get out. And then no, you can do it. No, you can, no, you do it. And then I finally just put my head under. And I was like, right, now you can get out. Because I faced the fear of actually getting in. But I didn't push myself too far to have to swim out. So I wasn't feeling it. I was already battling myself to even get in the water to start with. And so I listened to my body. I didn't push myself too far. I didn't like over push the boundary, but I overcame that fear that was a limiting fear, but honored the one that felt like a legit, like I just don't want to push myself that much today on my own. I've not been doing it for a while. Da, 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 da. And so I do find it difficult to always find the balance, but I'm learning this lately to listen more to my body, to listen more and like ask more questions about that emotion that's coming up. Like, why are you there? Where are you coming from? Is this a really valid emotion or is it just a response from something else? And it does take a lot of work, I guess, to sit with yourself, but it's worth it when you start to really live, because if not, you'll live small. And I do know, and a lot of everyone, me and Zia and Becca will all know on this call, most of the spirits that we talk to, that is one of their biggest regrets is not living. And so I took that out of all the things I took from working with spirit. I took that and I live. And that's why I throw myself in reservoirs like freezing, because I feel like I need to activate my body and be like, no, I can do this because why not? I'm just part of nature. But it's really cold. No, but the point is truly trust yourself to live and don't be afraid. And if you do feel like you are struggling with that and you are struggling to break free from that, I'm sure every one of us can help you here on this call, either in a one-to-one session or guidance. And me and Z have got our retreat coming up in September, the Surrender and Serenity Retreat. The tickets are available and there is only 15 available. So if you do want a ticket, make sure you are getting one because they are on sale now. At spiritualsoulcentre.com, you can secure your place with the deposit. And we have got a workshop day in North Yorkshire in Settle at Falcon Manor on the 28th of June, which is all about this work. So we're going to be doing the reprogramming the mind, reparenting the inner child, and breaking them subconscious patterns from the inside out. So if you are struggling and you do feel like you need a bit of help, please do come and join us because we will have a magical time, as always. And Z, you've got your Vault and your Game Changer that's out.
Yeah, the Game Changer that's out that works specifically with the nervous system and learning how to work with what we just talked about, all of those fears and things within your system and how to connect in with all of your internal information that you've got and go for it. And more to come out with that. And also to everybody again, like this is our perspective, and we want to see all of you guys watching this really step into yourself, ask more questions, and be as big as you possibly can in here.
Yeah, question everything, including us. And Becca, do you have any? You can send me all the links. I'll put them on the video. But do you want to mention anything that you offer wherever you are? And I'm not sure. I don't have the links and stuff right now, so we can share that.
Where I am, so my spiritual center, I like to well, I use it as a tool to teach everyone different perspectives from spirituality. So I like to do like Halloween stuff. So I've got Halloween coming up, the May the 1st, for example, because
I love
that's
that.
it's a gateway to like the spiritual realm, you know? So
Right.
that's part of it, but they don't realize necessarily as paranormal fans. I mean, I can't say nothing. I love paranormal stuff. So I go from that perspective, and then I go to like the meditation and the astral and the woo-woo type perspective. So I think I like to just do that. But if you want to come and visit Soul Tribe sometime, I'm down in Rushden in Northamptonshire. So I'd like to.
Totally get
Obviously,
it.
you're more than welcome, and I'll send you my Facebook. That is just
That'd be awesome. We'll have to look at doing some sort of collab. Maybe one day we can do a little workshop down at your place, Becca. That'd be awesome.
yeah,
Doing some energy work down there. That sounds much fun.
that'll be
You're giving me
cool.
ideas.
That'd be
I'll
fun.
be down there next week. I'll be like,
So much.
You know what?
Thank
no,
you so
awesome.
much. That was
Been
amazing.
really good.
So grateful
Yeah.
for you and the information
Yeah,
you
thank you
brought
for having
forward.
me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll maybe connect in the future because this was really fun and it just flowed really naturally. And thanks anybody that's tuned in and watched us. And if you have any questions or any feedback, please let us know in the comments and stay tuned. You will see us next week. So take care and lots of love, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the content and the immersive co-creative processes with others. I have a question for you. What would it be like to fully trust your own perspective, your intuition, all of that beautiful insight that you've gathered over time, all of the healing work that you've done, all the interpersonal deep work that you've done? If you could fully trust that and feel that in your system, walk it without hesitation, without not making the right decision, without stopping yourself, without sabotaging yourself, what would that feel like? And if you'd like to go a little bit deeper, please click on the links below and keep it weird.